LAWsome by Consultwebs. Breakthrough insights to build a thriving law firm with your host, Tanner Jones.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another LAWsome Podcast. Today on the show, very excited to be talking with Louis A. Sosa, a shareholder and personal injury attorney at Rosenthal, Levy, Simon, and Sosa Attorneys at Law. Louis dedicates his practice to personal injury cases, and he credits his success to his law firm's belief that every client deserves zealous representation. His commitment to providing his clients with the optimal outcome from personal injury cases truly sets him and his firm apart. Due to his expertise and dedication, Louis was inducted as the St. Lucie County Bar Association president. Also, the National Trial Lawyers Association selected him as a top 40 under 40 civil plaintiffs lawyer. Today's topic, it's optimizing workers' comp, streamlining intake at personal injury law firms. Very important topic. And Louis, I'm very glad you're here to share your experiences and those insights. So welcome. Glad to have you on the show.
Thank you, Tanner. It's great to be here. And thank you for having me, of course.
Absolutely. And I love niche topics. I mean, for one, LAWsome has been set up really as a legal marketing and management platform to help law firms make better decisions in running their practice. And that's exactly what you're here to do. Today is really speak on a very niche topic, specifically related to work comp and some of the intricacies in managing a practice, especially the intake side. So I'm excited, as I know our listeners are. Handling work comp claims requires clearly a deep understanding of law and attention to detail, and definitely a streamlined approach so that you can be profitable as a business. All of those factors, virtually every business owner desires in order to run a profitable business. So, Louis, I'm interested to hear from you and your experience. What key factors contribute to successfully optimizing workers' compensation claims, particularly from a personal injury standpoint?
Well, my firm's been doing workers' comp for over 40 years, okay? And it's a pretty complicated law, and not a lot of law firms actually do it. Right. And like you say, it's kind of like more of a niche area. And so how to optimize it from a personal injury standpoint is, there's cases that you have to look out for when a case comes in the door that are called companion cases. And so what that is, just to give an example, is, you got a working local delivery driver, and he's driving his truck. He's working, obviously, he's on the job, and he gets rear-ended, right? Truck slams into the back of him. When you're optimizing that case, you're looking at it from not only from a workers' comp standpoint, but also a personal injury standpoint. And you have to understand both in order to really optimize the case, and know what pros and cons there are in order to evolve the case in the right format.
Yeah, it's interesting to me. We work with a lot of personal injury law firms, but some of those PI firms will have like a division of work comp, but most firms find, or at least that I've observed, are referring a lot of these work comp cases out to firms like you, Louis. I mean, people who are clearly dedicated to have a good process. Has that been your experience? And if so, what's the big driver behind that? Why are firms not doing that themselves in-house?
Well, the problem is that workers' comp cases requires, a good team. And it really does. It's almost like a practice where there's really not a lot of room for error, especially when people are concerned about either losing their job, putting their employers on notice. Things like that really do influence a case. More into it really has been kind of, workers' comp has been a very complicated and when I say complicated, it's almost hard for a lot of firms to make money in those cases and optimize, because not a lot of people want to leave their job. They like their job. They just got injured. They want to get better. They want to get back to work. And so it doesn't leave a lot of room for some attorneys to really handle a case and thinking that they're almost relating it to a personal injury case. And it's completely not. Not only that, the laws have changed throughout the years. And there's a lot of politics that go in place in workers' comp. So there have not been as many workers' comp attorneys because a lot of attorneys just don't feel comfortable in that area of law. It requires you to be up to date with your case law, up to date with what's going on in the legislature. And it does require an ongoing education process more than just your standard continuing legal education.
That makes sense. I'd like to pivot more into into the intake side, because I know there's some unique elements with that. I mean, for any law firm, managing intake is arguably one of the most impactful and important things a business can do in an effort to not only create a great first impression, obviously, for the public, but most importantly, to be able to build enough confidence, qualify that prospective client, and ultimately sign them up if it's a good fit. Given your experience, especially in the niche of work comp and personal injury law, what are the most significant challenges that you see law firms are dealing with when it comes to the intake process overall?
Really, it's issue spotting. When you have a client that comes in and calls you for a work comp case, there's certain questions that you have to ask, and it's like the right questions. It's not just, we're injured, how did it happen? Because liability is not an issue in workers' comp. You were hurt on the job, and you're on the job. You're qualified for workers' comp. So asking the right questions is so crucial in an intake, because workers' comp is, like I said at the beginning, it's all about issue spotting. And people are worried about, like I said earlier, losing their jobs, right? So you have to navigate it properly, ask the right questions to make people feel comfortable that you're not going to do something that's going to sacrifice their position at work or maybe upset their employer. Almost make them feel confident that you know what you're doing. You're there to help. You're not there just to try to squeeze money out of them because they are a potential money source for you. What you really have to do is make a client feel like you're there to help them, okay? And make them feel comfortable. And that all goes into the questions you're asking, how you approach the situation, and explaining the process.
Yeah, and maybe, for another day, we can get into, getting into the weeds on some of those questions. But I'm curious to hear any innovative strategies that you've used or the firm has used in particular to help streamline the intake process overall or avoid some of those challenges.
We have. So we, in our firm, are very hands-on as attorneys. A lot of firms, what happens is, you'll call a law firm, and they'll obviously have an intake department. They'll have someone that is kind of there to field the case, ask some questions, see if it's something that hits certain, trigger points, and then they pass it on. Mm-hmm. We as attorneys in this firm are accustomed to being involved from an intake process. So we as the attorneys are asking the right questions. And it's not someone just asking your standard questions. So we learn how to navigate. So every case is different, right? You're going to have a new client that calls in and they have an issue that happened at work. Well, with our experience, we're going to be able to navigate those questions to then jump to the next appropriate question, depending on the answers we get and the vibe we get too. Other than just a robotic, okay, here's the next question. Here's the next question. Sometimes people feel like, okay, this is just a questionnaire. Mm-hmm. This person's not really there to help me. They're not really there to answer my questions. So they're more there to get information to then transfer me to somebody else. So we're efficient and we're in terms of getting an attorney involved because it doesn't take that much time to really speak with somebody and at least secure a connection to say, hey, look, we're here to help. These are the answers to your key questions. Now let's dive into other aspects. Let's just get you going into the right aspect of a case or right, manner of how we're going to handle this. And so that's a key factor, is getting an attorney involved at an early point and being available to respond. Not only just available to respond, but responding efficiently and quickly.
That's a powerful process. I mean, I'm certain we have listeners who hear that and think, how in the world are you able to even afford that or have the capacity with your attorneys? I mean, how would you answer that if somebody's questioning, how in the world do you even afford to have attorneys handling intakes more consistently?
Well, this is the thing. We are not a firm that's getting a call every 5 minutes, right? Otherwise, you as an attorney wouldn't have the ability to practice law. And obviously that's really important, right? You got to move the cases forward and represent your clients. But intakes are a priority. And so when we have a call that comes in, we're not the ones answering the call. Obviously, we'll have somebody call or pick up the phone and they'll get a very, very basic information. Oh, you were injured in an auto accident. You were injured at work. Tell me a little bit about that. Okay, so have you received medical care? Okay, well, let me see if I can find someone to assist you. At that point, someone on our team is going to get notified that there's a potential call on the line. as the attorney, we hear about that. If we're available, we jump on. If we're not available, we find somebody else. Hey, can you speak with them briefly? It doesn't take a long time to get on the phone. And if you spend a minute or two on the phone with a new intake that you think is going to be fruitful, that is going to pay its weight in gold, because now a client is going to realize and say, hey, look, an attorney actually got on the phone, not just a paralegal, not a secretary. They must be serious. They must be willing to help. I just feel like people feel more comfortable when an attorney gets on the phone than actually an assistant.
I would agree.
Yeah, and so we're not asking to be on the phone for 10 minutes, and obviously not every case is going to be a case that is going to be something that turns into a fruitful case, but that's why we have at least certain questions at the front can ask an individual and say, yeah, you know what, this is something that could turn into a comp case, and then pass it over to somebody that can hop on the line with them.
I love it. I mean, I assume that there's a cultural buy-in to be able to get to that point. I mean, you all have been around for decades, so I'm certain you've worked through that in the past. But I've seen personally of the clients I work with across the country, the law firms that do just as you've done, which I will say is a very small percentage of law firms out there who are committing to what you're suggesting. They have historically seen a better conversion rate on new leads than virtually any other law firm. And you hit the nail on the head, Lewis, when you said, like, I believe that's what people prefer, right? They want to be immediately connected with someone who's credible, who's proven, who's been in the trenches, and not just simply shipped off to a call center overseas or in California.
And look, I mean, it's not easy. It does take a lot of work and dedication to do it. But we as attorneys in this field kind of have to multitask, and it's becoming more and more competitive, because there are a lot of firms out there that are dumping a lot of digital marketing and marketing dollars trying to get clients. But at the end of the day, what's that client really receiving? Are they just getting targeted and then calling a firm because they have the best marketing, or are they calling a firm because they have the best attorneys? And so, hey, look, we're all humans, right? We have lives outside of work. I go home, I'm with my family, my kids, and a call comes in where an assistant tells me, hey, look, there's a potential case. Look, it's what I've chosen to do, and if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right. And it's not going to take a lot of time out of my day, but it's going to make a huge difference in that client's life if I get on the phone for a few minutes with them and let them know, I got your case on my radar. These are the next steps. And just know that you're in good hands.
Let's keep moving, Lewis, because I mean, we've talked about intake, but naturally intake requires some level of interest from the public, or, maybe having a strong referral or word of mouth network to make the phone ring. Marketing is often one of those things. To be successful in the world of legal, especially in the area of PI and work comp, you need to know what you're doing. You need to have legal expertise, but you also need to have a solid marketing strategy that resonates, that builds confidence with prospective clients. Digital and leveraging data to drive marketing strategy is a powerful way today to grow a business, especially a PI firm or a work comp firm. So I'm curious, just given your firm's entrenchment in the marketplace, your longstanding history, and then coupled with just the rise of digital, how has that transformed your firm's approach to attracting clients today? Anything changed? Anything new that you would share with our audience?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, using digital marketing tactics it's helped increase our work comp case volume. There's no doubt about it. Work comp cases can be targeted. Okay, clients they can be profiled by their household income, zip code, industry they work in, things like that. We can run social media ads based on that profile. And like our website, for instance, RosenthalLevy.com has a page on almost every type of workplace accident, from like healthcare worker to forklift accident. We also have like common workplace companies mentioned as like Amazon or Walmart. So we search base display ads that appear based on like user search queries. And these ads are very targeted. So you're not like wasting your money on and serving ads that don't need a work comp attorney or anything like that. So it has transformed and it's evolved. It's kind of actually pretty cool and neat how some of these companies can actually do that. But it's something that is so necessary, especially now in day and age.
I would agree. I mean, the hyper targeting, we see it every day. You go on social media yourself and you scratch your head on how in the world did they know I was considering this particular purchase or this interest. But you're right, it's the targeting aspect. And I would encourage all of our listeners too, if you have a practice similar to Lewis, where it's a focused practice, it's not a general practice. Well, the more you can really start to drill down on demographics and understanding your clientele, where do they work, where do they live, all the things Lewis suggested, you now have the ingredients to craft a very focused, very targeted marketing campaign. And I love that you all have taken advantage of that. Let's dive into the topic of marketing a little further, because clearly, I mean, you can do a lot of stuff in-house as a law firm, but there are a lot of things that are often outside of your own expertise. And firms choose to hire and find focused, say, marketing groups or various vendors to help support their own lead generation. A big part of marketing today, especially on digital, is content creation, content marketing. I'm interested to hear specifically your experience, Lewis, around how a marketing provider that you've partnered with, how can they play a role in supporting you and crafting content? And also, what do you see on your end as necessary components to support that and make sure it's as good as it can possibly be and represented to the public?
So, I mean, one person told me that, in order to be successful, you have to surround yourself with people that are successful or can be successful and have potential. And we have a great marketing director. She's been so crucial to us. And it's just a lot of work to do it as an individual. Like, there's attorneys out there that try to manage it themselves, and more power to them, but that's not really something that I have time for, nor am I that really skilled. And there's people that are so skilled, just like our marketing director in this area, and they're able to manage not only the brand but the vendors and what content they put out there, and they keep their finger on the pulse. And look, you know what, they maybe call the vendor and they say, hey, look, let's take a little bit of a twist. I don't really like this angle. I mean, you need someone that's there constantly looking over things. And as attorneys, you have to dedicate your time in moving a case forward. That's how you make money in this business, is moving your cases, being in contact with adjusters, being in contact with clients. It doesn't really leave a lot of room to, make sure that you're dotting your I's, crossing your T's with these vendors, and how your brand is displayed out to the public. So you need somebody that actually focuses on that. So that's how we've kind of stayed ahead and, basically succeeded, because a lot of it does involve our marketing director. And like I said, she's just someone who I have total trust in and has done such a great job for us in getting us out there. And I think that's just such a crucial role in every firm.
Lewis, you hit on several things that really resonate with me, being in the marketing field that works exclusively with law firms. I hear that, and I agree with everything. In fact, the point I want to really stress is that this is not just a one-sided effort. In fact, the most successful firms I've seen digitally, online, are the ones who are involved. And that's really what I hear from you. I mean, clearly you have a really strong marketing director asset in-house that's helping to drive strategy and ensure your brand is represented well. But that knowledge of the office, of the DNA, of the culture can often get forgotten about or neglected by an outside group if you don't have that middle conduit, if you will, that's driving that. So I do want to point that out. I think you've built a really good process from what I've seen and observed in that. And the bigger thing too is that you don't just walk away from it. Whereas a lot of law firms it's easy to get lost in, as you say, pushing cases forward and totally neglect the marketing and not stay involved. And in those instances, I can tell you it rarely works that way, at least not consistently. So yeah, I appreciate the points that you made there. Lewis, as we wrap up here, I'm interested to hear from you. Any questions that you would have wished I asked that I didn't?
Well, there's one question, I know there's not a lot of firms that handle workers' comp. Okay. There's not many of them. Most of them, a lot of firms will do personal injury, but not a lot of them will do workers' comp. So, a question I would ask is like, how can a law firm like set up a process for other law firms to easily refer to them? Okay, refer them a case.
Great question.
And so if you're not doing personal injury, you can still actually get or workers' comp. You can still get workers' comp cases, referred over to them, especially personal injury firms that just focus on personal injury. You could still market and say, look, we handle all kinds of injuries, even if you're hurt on the job. And so if you get a case that says, hey, look, I was injured on the job, is there a personal injury component? There's not. But now that firm has that case and they go, hey, you know what? I'm going to call Lewis's firm. And I know they do comp and they're going to take them over and refer them over there. So targeting, injury cases, because you never know, there could be a third party component. So you're able to do that ethically as well, because you're looking for injury cases. Now, it may not be a personal injury case, so that's where you kind of refer it out to a work comp firm like my own. But trying to get people to come into your law firm's website and, basically fish for them, so then you can refer them out.
It's a great suggestion. And I see it all the time where you have well-branded, good marketing law firms that simply are not covering enough categories and they're missing opportunities. I mean, that's how you grow your network. They can attract the calls, but then have a confidence that they can send it to someone who's dedicated and focused on that area of law. They win, you win, and the client clearly wins by having even better representation, focused representation. So it
Right.
makes perfect sense to me.
Right.
Thank you for sharing that, Lewis. I'm so grateful for you being willing to come on the show and talk through your niche practice and how you handle both the intake side, operations, and marketing. What's the best way for listeners to find you?
Best way to find me, they can email me, lsosa@rosenthallevy.com. And that's 2 L's in the middle of Rosenthal Levy. Or you know what? They can call my phone, 561-315-3942. I give out my cell phone regularly. I think it's such an important tool in today's day and age. People want the immediate communication. They want to text. They want to be able to call. In order to succeed, you just got to do it nowadays. So they can call me anytime.
Good deal. Lewis, thanks again. Really enjoyed it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Tanner. It was great.
LAWsome by Consultwebs with Tanner Jones. For show notes, links, and info, go to consultwebs.com/podcast. Be sure to subscribe and leave us a review. Watch for the next LAWsome episode to discover more breakthrough insights to build a thriving law firm.